when I'm looking at teams, okay, to win the
Uh-oh.
conference, okay. Look, I took a different when I was betting. I did not take this team. The team that we're talking about is Clemson. Okay, Clemson is a good football team. They got a good coaching staff. They got talent at premium positions. Okay, but it feels like these last couple of years, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, they haven't really been able to put it together all that much. Okay, you have another year with your quarterback. The guy who the prophecy said was going to be the guy that, I mean, you basically brought in Garrett Riley because of this quarterback, a quarterback that, quite frankly, I'm not super high on. And I haven't been. I wasn't last year. And I think I'm going to stick with that same philosophy this year. Now, do they need premium quarterback play to win, 8, 9, 10 games? Maybe not. Maybe not. Hasn't stopped in the last 2 years. Maybe last 3 years. Is that crazy? So, very interesting situation that Clemson is in. I think there is a lot of pressure, believe it or not, for Dabo to win games. And I know we talk about, winning 9, 10 games, 11 games. It feels like 9-3 these days is actually the new 10-2. So there's a value in winning football games, but I think there's a different expectation at Clemson, a different kind of player they're recruiting, and a clear neglect of using the transfer portal for this Clemson team.
Yeah, well, listen, I know you. I know you're not as high on Kate Klubnik. I happen to think that he's going to take a step, and I also happen to think that like last year it was just such an odd year for Clemson. I watched those games; it was so frustrating, and I know Clemson fans you share that same sentiment because they should have won those games. It was turnovers, it was missed opportunities, it was just the little things that you were so accustomed to be seeing these Dabo Sweeney coach teams just get right, and the ball bounces your way, and you're always there in the right spots and whatnot. The penalties aren't killing you, and turnovers aren't happening. I do think this year that kind of, trend kind of regresses back to the mean. That's why I feel pretty good about this Clemson team this year. Listen, Kate Klubnik, you're just a Connor Wigman truther. I know, okay, I get that. I know you said it back then, and he is unbelievable, right? But I also think Kate Klubnik, he was top 6 yards per game as a quarterback, right? In the ACC. I mean, the only guys he was behind, they weren't that far. I mean, it was Travis, it was your Drake Mays, right? Everyone else was kind
Who
of
was he in front of?
right there.
Tony Muskett?
Um,
Tommy
it was
Castellanos? Brennan Armstrong? I mean, how many situations in that ACC? Grayson Loftus?
why?
In the bottom half of that ACC division, I mean, think about how many quarterback changes there were.
How about Phil Jurkovich? But yeah,
Dylan
it was
Jurkovich.
no. I'm with no. Listen, that's a good
I'm not
point.
trying
That's a
to. I'm
good
not
point you
trying to
bring
throw
up.
your take in the trash. I'm just
But
saying.
I'll get to it. That was
All
with
right.
a beaten up wide receiver core. That was with a young wide receiver core. Right. That was with a new offensive scheme. I think Coleman's good. I think he's going to play well, and I think he has to play well because there's not a lot of talent and depth that are ready to play right now behind them, and they're kind of all in on him.
Yeah.
And
Seriously.
it's kind of do or die right now. I think for not do or die, obviously not do or die for Dabo Sweeney, but it's kind of put up or shut up because he's gonna be hearing a lot about the portal if it's continues to not quite meet the expectation that he's built for that program. But yeah, listen, it's looking good in camp. Cade Klubnik, it seems more comfortable. I think that core around him, excuse me, is really, really good. And we'll see how the O line comes together. But I mean, you got a deep wide receiver group, you got a deep tight end group. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do with this offense. And if there are no excuses now, is what I'm trying to say. And I feel good about Klubnik, taking the next step. And he can definitely be in that top half, the upper echelon of quarterbacks in the ACC, which where you should be if you're a comes quarterback. And he also has, student of the year, academic legend Taj Boyd working with quarterbacks now, which is exciting. Get him back in Clemson, get him back in Death Valley um, for the Tigers there.
Let's talk about what's surrounding Cade Klubnik. Let's talk about the running back position because Phil Maffa's fantastic. He is a fantastic running back. All right. I know you don't have Will Shipley in there. And yes, he was a more dynamic athlete. All right, if that's the word you want to choose. But Phil Maffa is a runner, a cut and dry running back, born from the ashes. And he lives as I don't really have an NFL comp from right now. I thought I was going to have one in my head by the time I started this sentence.
Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush.
Bill Maffa?
Dare I say? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you were talking about Will Shipley.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Phil Maffa. Phil Maffa is a cut and dry football player. All right.
Yeah.
Just an absolute dog. He's physical. You do not want to tackle him. He's so good. And what also made him really good last year was that he was complimentary to Will Shipley. Right. I think Jay Haynes is a guy that you need to watch. Is he going to be that complimentary piece to Phil Maffa? I don't know. I think Phil Maffa, this is a gigantic bell cow situation here. Like, get out your moves. Don't cut your grass because Phil Maffa is going to be grazing to the end zone. All right. That's why I drafted him, I believe, in our fantasy. So did I take him as a wild card? I hope I did.
Yeah, because you took Jade Knott.
I took Jay Knott, and then I'm pretty sure I took Phil Moff as a wild card. God, I hope so, because that guy is going to have room to graze. And I think he's going to need to. But how are you feeling about the rest of this running back room?
I am a little bit worried about the depth, more so the proven depth. But I kind of have to remind myself, this is Clemson, where they develop, they recruit, and they keep relation. Like these guys, they just get on campus and then like they wait a couple years, and then they flash. Just because they're not coming in as true freshmen and playing doesn't mean that they're not good football players. We'll see though. You mentioned Haynes, Keith Adams, right? What's going to happen there? How they splitting up the time. But again, yeah, to me, it's Phil Maffa and that's it. And if he stays healthy, it's almost similar to what Cal has in Jaden Knott, where he's just a really, really good running back. And anyone who's not touching the football, it's a downgrade just because they're not Phil Maffa, right? And they're not bad football players or anything. It's just I think Clemson feels better with Maffa, and that's why you're going to see. You mentioned the bell cow. You're going to see him getting a ton of carries, and now hopefully you've got guys that can spell him just a little bit. That'd be ideal. Which you had in Shipley, more so kind of the other way around. But Shipley mentioned the great complementary piece that they were that to each other. So it'd be nice if one of those guys develops into that. But I think Garrett Riley and Sweeney are really going to lean on Maffa and to also establish running game and to take some of the pressure off of Cade Klubnik.
I agree. In the wide receiver room, I like some of these pieces. I do. I'll call them pieces. I think there's some unproven. There's some guys that you want to take more steps. Right? Is Brian Wesco going to be a game changer the second he steps on campus? I think he can be. Absolutely. And Tony Williams, are you going to stay healthy? Are you going to stay on the field? All right. I'm just saying, like, all right, I'll let you talk about this wide receiver room because Clemson fans are going to want to hear you talk about it. They don't want to hear me talk about it. All right?
They want to hear what they want to hear. No, I'm
Exactly.
serious about this wide receiver core. This is the unit why I'm super high in this team.
Okay.
This looks more like your Clemson teams of past where you had a bunch of really good wide receivers. Now, is there Mike Williams? Maybe not. But there doesn't have to be, right? I think you mentioned Antonio Williams, Brian Fesco. Antonio Williams is a guy that's looking really good right now. And he, I think, is unbelievably upset how last year went. Deservingly so, right? I'll be too. Wesco's come on since spring and has played really, really well. Another true freshman, TJ Moore, came after that, but he's a little bit more behind in development. We'll see if we get into October, November, if he can really start contributing to this football team. But Tyler Brown, that's who I love, man. He was really good last year in a room that needed somebody to step up, and he did as a true freshman, 3-star kid, former Minnesota commit. Oh, he just took him from us, which is fine. I think he's from South Carolina, and I would have gone to Clemson too if I was from South Carolina. But regardless, I think he's going to improve on last year as well. Adam Randall, another guy like Williams, is he finally healthy? Is he a bigger body dude? Is he playing well? Troy Stellato, your slot receiver, your classic slot receiver for Clemson that they've always had, right? He's back. Is Cole Turner. Can he take the top off the defense with his speed and his game-breaking ability? Same goes for Musoon Kelly, right? And is Ronan Hannafin, is he developing the way you want him to be? Maybe not for 2024, but in 2025 and beyond. Listen, I just named there's 6, 7 guys that you feel pretty good. I think about playing in different ways that they can fit in this offense. The key is going to be those top guys staying healthy and your 5-star freshmen, staying healthy and developing as well, which is not ideal to rely on some injury prone players, I guess, if you want to call it, and young freshmen. But the reality is, I do think the talent is there. It's a well stocked room. They didn't add any transfers, which I guess doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I don't think they needed. I really don't think they needed to. Um, and you pair that too with a tight end room, right? With Jake Brindistol, who is really, really good. I watched that Miami game a couple days ago. Holy cow. He made some really nice plays in that game. Josh Sapp, he's flashing in camp as well. Olsen Pat Henry is a guy I was super high on back in high school, and he flashed on a little bit last year in practice. Is he going to continue to develop? How much can he give you? And is Christian Bentancur? I mean, I think it looks like he's ready to play as a true freshman. We'll see how much he gets in there. I know it's hard making that transition from high school to college level, especially the high college level at a tight end position. But regardless, though, I mean, you've got 10 bodies in that room that are legit bodies. And that's, I think, what they've been missing for the past couple of years now. And a consistent quarterback. But also, I do think consistent wide receiver and tight end play is something that's going to help that cause.
Consistent tight end play, 1,000,000,000%. Brink Stool is fantastic. If you're a college fantasy football player, absolutely should scoop up some shares of him. He was fantastic last year. 75 targets, 50 receptions. That's really good. Okay. In the wide receiver room, I do agree with you that there are a lot of pieces, different ways that you can use guys, right?
The pieces again.
The pieces again. Are any, how do I say this? Talent's there, just a little bit unproven. All right. Is that fair? And you're projecting this talent to take a huge step.
A huge healthy step. Yes.
A huge healthy step. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's a very good word that you can use there. Yeah. Just, man, I hope someone can throw in the ball.
Listen, Georgia, it'll be interesting because who knows what happens in that game. I guess we'll talk more about it once we get to it. But I mean, I look around the SEC and I don't see a ton of elite wide receiver cores. I listen, I guess I'm projecting here, right? But I don't think it's crazy to say that this Clemson receiving core is going to be, one of the better teams that Georgia sees all year. And I think it's a great test for them, but also a nice litmus test, I think, for Clemson right away to see, is this offense working? Is Klubnik getting better? Do these receivers, can they separate at the elite level against elite corners and schemes that they're going to be playing against, hopefully once they get to the playoffs, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it can be really good. It can be really good. Let's talk about the offensive line because, I feel like if you're going to ask questions about the ceiling of this offense, I think you can't talk about a ceiling of this offense without talking about where the potentials of this offensive line lie, right? And you're seeing a lot of talent, seeing a lot of highly rated recruits across the board. What are we seeing, CD? Well, what do you like about this offensive line? What do you not like about this offensive line?
Listen, I like Tristan Lay, right? It sounds like he's a former 5-star guy that he's, progressing into his own more and more, looking good in camp. Blake Miller, the other tackle, it sounds like he's looking good at camp. He wasn't terrible for you at all last year. Above average guy, graded out pretty well. Marcus Tate, again, a very good pass protector in the interior there. It'll be about the other positions. You're also losing a good amount there. Will Putnam, Marcus Tate, Mitchell Mays, Colin Sadier. Those guys, they all played a lot of snaps for you last year. Was it all great? No. But again, it's a lot of snaps on the way out. We'll see how Linthicum and Harris Sewell. I think they're kind of battling out for center. Walker Parks. Is he going to be playing good at right guard there? And then Elijah Thurman, the young kid, Matt Luke really likes, and that's the key right there. Matt Luke enters the equation. It sounds like there's been a different mentality, different focus on that offensive line group, and you're kind of seeing it. Early signs are that they are kind of having their way with that defensive line. And to me, that is super impressive because we know how good that defensive line is, right? We know how talented it is. And to me, that's what gets me excited. Now, I'm still going to be wait till I believe because I do think that this has earned the right to be cautiously optimistic, but cautiously, right? In terms of how it comes together. Again, would you have loved to add, an offensive lineman here or there in the portal the past couple of years? Absolutely. Absolutely. Have you missed on some guys in your evaluation? Absolutely. But I do think that with the infusion of Matt Luke and, Garrett Riley in year two, I do think that helps the way that this offense can be moving forward, especially at that offensive line spot.
So you mentioned Marcus Tate. Isn't he back? Is he back this year?
Yeah,
Or
no,
was?
he'll be playing left guard.
Okay. Oh, okay. Maybe I misheard you. It sounded like you were talking about like him being gone. Uh, I happen to like this offensive line. I'm higher on this offensive line group than a lot of other position groups, I think, on this offense. I think this can be really good. I think it can be really effective. Now, yeah, sure. You're going to play Georgia, okay? And that's going to be the issue. You're going to have to play on the road against Florida State, who's a good defensive line. You're going to have to play South Carolina, who's a good defensive line. Virginia Tech is a really good defensive line. The optimism there is I think you got a group of guys that are talented enough. And like you said, having a coaching staff there that has succeeded with less, I think that this offensive line is sufficient enough to hold up in the ACC and, maybe give Phil Maffa, right, more lanes to run in, Cade Klubnik, more time to pass. I think if, we talk about Cade Klubnik taking the progression, taking a step, one of those key steps is going to require probably his offensive line to play pretty well. And actually, that's not a part that I'm worried about at all. I think that this offensive line can play football. I think they can. I think you got a decent amount of snaps almost across the board, except maybe at your center position, and and some talent, right? And you talked about Tristan Lay. Yeah, sure, he doesn't have as much snaps as say Marcus Tate, Blake Miller, Walter Parks, but you got to. That's a talent that I'll for sure believe in. So I'm definitely higher on their offensive line. The defense is right is the side, and where you talked about being high in Clemson's wide receiver group. But to me, if I was taking the over in Clemson, I'm taking the over because I believe in this defense. Death, taxes, and Clemson having a pretty stinking good front seven. All right.
It's crazy that they can lose Xavier Thomas, Ruka Rorko, Tyler Davis, Jeremiah Trotter, Sheridan Jones, Nate Wiggins, Andrew Makuba, all these names last year that played well for you for multiple years. And yet, yeah, they're still replenishing without the transfer portal. Credit to Dabo Sweeney, right? That's some good stuff there. That defensive line that's young, right? You got some young pieces, but it's pretty damn good and fun and exciting, right? And we'll see how these guys, kind of grow into their year two body. I'm looking at TJ Parker, I'm looking at Peter Woods
Yeah.
and how they can
Yeah.
progress. I mean,
And so
TJ Parker was
sophomores.
yeah, holy cow. What's new? Clemson hits on a 5-star defensive lineman. What's new, right? So TJ Parker, he was so good, but he had some surgery, I believe. Sounds like he was looking good after that, which is great news because you hate to see injuries derail a player like that, especially a young, flashy player like that. Is Peter Woods moving defensive end? Did I see that? I saw that somewhere and I wrote it down and now I could not find it. The life of me going back to it. I can see why, because you've got those guys like Peyton Page, you've got DeMont Copeland, Vic Burley,
I think he
Stephen
is.
Green, Caden Store. You've got these big body dudes that can fill up the gaps. And I know Peter Woods, I think he came in overweight. Is that what? Don't quote me on that, but it sounds like he came in overweight and they kind of had him lose some weight. And man, him and TJ Parker, first of all, what a duo for the next couple of years, probably 2 years. And then AJ Hoffler, right? Kate Denhoff. You got some talent behind them, don't you?
No, you seriously do. And it doesn't stop in the linebacker group either. Are you kidding me? Barrett Carter, Wade Wooders, Kobe McLeod, Sammy Brown. Is he going to get legitimate playing time this year? Because that guy is a superstar in the making. True freshman, 5-star. Yeah, stud. Sammy Brown.
To,
Book it.
to me, to me, I see the way that Texas used Anthony Hill last year, right? And they had a really talented defense, even in that front seven, especially in the front seven. And they were able to use creative ways to get him near the football, and he just made plays. And Sammy Brown is an incredible athlete, right? They talked about the way he played running back as well, the playmaking ability that he has, even if he's not quite ready, just fully mentally. And is he ahead of, or is he there with Barrett Carter and Woody Wetaz and maybe Colby McLeod? maybe not, but athletically though, he is so there. And I think just get him on the field, turn him loose on certain packages, give him things to do in a niche way in year one that can help you win football games in big time moments. I mean, Anthony Hill, who would have thought he would be the guy to make multiple big time tackles against Jalen Milroe and Alabama on the road early in the season? I see a similar fate to Sam Brown.
Are you good?
Oh yeah, sorry. Well, that
You
cornerback
just
room too.
lost your train. You lose your train of thought.
No, I said I see a similar fate for that too.
Oh,
Or
it
did
sounded
I?
like you were continuing on that thought. Sorry. That was pretty funny. But
We
yeah,
can move
not
to the corners, or
yeah.
unless you got more in linebacking core. Because that front seven, first of all, I think we should do a little recap. Like I said, you lose 4 defensive linemen, you lose Jeremiah Trotter, has been there for, and it is still a scary group, And again, that's where you want to be. That's where you can really put through. And that's also why I feel so good about this team. And the floor of this team too is, excuse me, where if you can control the line of scrimmage on the offensive defense side of the football, you're going to be in so many football games.
Yeah, his defense was really good last year, and part of the reason why they've lost some games was just giving up inconvenient, explosive plays, and uh, not getting off the field on fourth downs. Like there was things that happened that led to them losing some games on the defense side of the ball. Like it wasn't necessarily the defense's fault because obviously the offense was pretty not great at sometimes, especially in the red zone. Holy cow! I'm sure Clemson fans can agree with me on that. But yeah, it was never a problem with the defense. I don't think, and it doesn't stop in the secondary. Again, like you said, you lose Nate Wiggins, you lose Makuba, but let's just go through the list of names: Khalil Barnes, R.J. Mickens, Kylan Griffin, Avian Terrell, Sheldon Lewis, Jaden Lucas. I mean, like just name after name after name. Guys with not all these guys have a ton of experience. Uh, but in the secondary, I'll bet on upside for sure. And with this group, I think you got a really good, talented group of guys that this defensive staff feels really good about getting out there, and they're playing behind pretty stinking good front seven. So I'm willing to bet on the upside of the secondary at the expense of the front seven being really good.
Yeah, I'll throw one more name in there. Did you say Tavoy Fegan?
Nope.
He's a young kid, and stop me where you've seen this before, right? Blue chip, defensive back, making waves in camp, hoping to contribute in year one. Now they have talent ahead of him, so they don't need him to come in and play meaningful snaps. But he is a guy that they are super, super high on. Similarly to Corey Gibson as well. I know he's coming off injury, but it sounds like he's got the tools. Well, he does have the tools. It sounds like he's also there mentally as well to be ready to play and contribute in year one. I mean, damn it, man. I look at these last two cycles that this class, that Sweeney has hit on in true sophomores and true freshmen right now, and that they are just going to be really, really scary this year and years to come. So credit Clemson and what they've done. Khalil Barnes, I mean, he's another true sophomore, going to play in the slot probably. He's a guy that is a really good football player, really good football player. And then you pair him with some old guys like Mickens and Griffin, I guess, is old. He's year 3. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, I like this group.
Well, now let's go to their schedule, right? So their number one win total, right? And I think I'm gonna boof you again here, but most places they're it's at 9. Okay, I know you're probably looking at FanDuel CD and you're seeing the staring at the 8.5 at minus 172 there for the over, but we're gonna pick on the show at 9. All right. And I don't think it's gonna
Time.
change your answer with going the over, but week 1, okay, you open up with Georgia. Okay. Neutral site game. Pretty tough. All right, tough game to open up the season with. Get
Yeah.
Appalachian State at home, NC State at home week 4 after a bye, of course. Stanford at home week 5, FSU on the road week 6, at Wake Forest week 7, game I'm not worried about. Virginia at home, then a bye week after Virginia, Louisville at home after that, Virginia Tech on the road, then Pitt on the road, then you get the Citadel at home. I mean, heard they gave Bama troublesome a couple years ago. South Carolina at home, and yeah, I see your optimism, dude. This is not a bet, obviously. Clemson fans are gonna be pissed, but I'm a slight lean into the under because I think Georgia's a guaranteed loss, right? Then it's like in 11 games, can you win 10 of them, right? To get the over. If you win 9, obviously, you push, right? But I don't know, man. I don't know because I like sneakily like Virginia Tech in that game when they're on the road there. I don't know what that game is like against South Carolina in the last week of the season. We've seen some crazy stuff happen there. I don't like the fact that they have to go on the road against FSU. So when I'm chalking up games, I'm looking at, NC State as a team that could potentially upset them as well. I just like, obviously I don't feel good enough. If it was at 9.5, I would consider taking it. If it's at 8.5, I'm probably taking the over. Absolutely. But at the number 9, I don't know. I'm a slight lean, slight lean to the under. And you know what? Because you have a really good defense, defense travels. The floor of this team is much higher because of how good that defense is. So that's maybe it's not smart to take the under in this spot.
It is tough to take the over because of the quarterback concerns behind King Klubnik, but I'm going to take the over here. And even at 9, I do think a better play is just taking them to win the ACC at plus 360 because that Georgia game just
Doesn't matter.
devalues that over under so much. And even that South Carolina game too, it just devalues it. And I think you're going to know, by early November where you stand in the ACC in terms of where you're going to be in the championship game. You can kind of get healthy against, Pitt and the Citadel and really make a push. I do think this team is going to be battle tested. And I think that's an awesome thing if they were to make the championship game and then win that to go to the playoffs. You get a little bit of rest, and then you're going to be seeing a lot of good football teams, just like you played on your schedule. Yeah, Georgia, South Carolina, Louisville, even at Vatech, at Florida State, North Carolina State. You mentioned all those teams. I mean, those are good litmus tests where you as a program, where you are, what you need to work on, and all that good stuff. And listen, yeah, I like this team. I don't see any question marks other than backup quarterback. And so if I'm going
Starting
for it,
quarterback.
I'm
Sorry, I'm asking different questions than you, but and that's
which is
fair,
fine.
which is
Which is
fine.
fine.
And you can take it. Also, too, if you're gonna bet this, viewers, I think it's more valuable to take the over 8.5. I think just literally based on like actual math, versus taking that 9. The problem is like it's hard giving a book your money for like the entire season if you're only getting paid out at minus 172. That hasn't stopped this show in the past. And it will not stop this show.
And it cashed. And it cashed.
And
Rutgers over 3.5 last year. It soared over.
it
Thank you very much.
absolutely
So if there's
scored.
if
And
there's any
some.
sign, that means that this is going to soar over as well. That's why I'm going ACC champ winner. Uh, and by the way, man, I know it's going to be a probable loss, and Clemson fans don't want to hear that. But you look at what Oregon did. Remember, Oregon played this Georgia team a couple years ago, and it was 49-3, and everyone wrote off Dan Lanning, everyone wrote up Bo Nix and that whole Oregon football team, and they came back and they won a lot of football games, and they barely lost to Washington and Oregon State, two very good football teams that year, to miss out on the Pac-12 championship game. I do not think all is lost. I think you get App State, take out your anger, excuse me, and then a bye week to regroup if the worst things happens with Georgia. So regardless, yeah, let's go Clemson. To me, I'm excited to watch them back. I think they're going to be so much more fun to watch this year than they had the past couple of years.